So this is like a bit last minute, so apologies for the rough slides. So just gonna talk a little bit about like experiences with playing around with visionOS. So I've been lucky enough to be able to kind of watch a lot of WWDC videos and also play around with the SDK and things. So just talking a bit about that. My name is Gerald, by the way. There's some contact information. Don't really post a lot on Mastodon though, but you can catch me on CocoaHeads Slack. Cool, so I'll assume that everybody's already watched the WWDC video. You know the basic like marketing spiel of the visionOS, so I'll skip over for a lot of this kind of stuff. I guess the important parts for us as developers is Amy kind of went over a lot of it already, where the beta 1 of the SDK is out already with Xcode 15. The human interface guidelines are out available as well, and Figma files for like if you wanted to try to prototype things are also available. So this is kind of what Apple sees that having the interface for visionOS looks like. You sit or you stand anywhere, like at a desk or your kitchen table, and you can have all sorts of floating 2D windows primarily. And this is kind of, I think, where a lot of the sessions and things were kind of geared towards, is making these 2D panels with 3D content if you wanted to. There's already been some third-party developers that have started playing around with the SDK, and they've been making some cool things. So these are just some examples. Apps like pCalc, I think that's Dolphin emulator. You can play like your Nintendo games on the walls and things. Probably won't ever see that in the App Store, but someone's working on it. So just a really quick one. I mean, a lot of this stuff, like Apple has WWDC videos. There's 41 videos. There's quite a lot of information out there on like making apps for visionOS and kind of the basic app types. So this is kind of just going through like that there'll be 3 kind of versions of things. You can primarily do window, like 2D panels. There's volumes where you can start introducing 3D content that the user can walk around. And then there's spaces, which are your app basically takes over the entire room, and you can do all sorts of cool things like ray casting, hand tracking, and things like that. But in Apple's HIG, they kind of recommend that most of your UI is in Windows. So you're kind of navigating around, getting to things that you want, and then kind of use 3D content as a accent to kind of wow the users. And it's also kind of the hardest to develop as well. So a really good example of a sample app, and one that, if you're interested in visionOS, this would probably be like a really good place to start, is they have a Hello World sample app, and it kind of showcases the 3 experiences of Windows, and then they have volumes where you can kind of view planets in 3D space and like walk around it and stuff. And even the immersive spaces where you're kind of surrounded by space. So just kind of starting with the, I guess as a starting point for visionOS development, you can take your existing iOS apps and just kind of run in compatibility mode. They just work, really with no additional work needed. The prefers iPad, so it'll show up as an iPad app, and it's kind of similar to like, if you remember when the iPad first came out, and some apps are still like this, where the iPhone app kind of just shows up as a blown-up version on the iPad app. It kind of feels a little bit like that, but I mean, it works. So Apple says, oh, there's hundreds of thousands of apps that will be available from day one. And it works, but it's not quite the best. So I have a screenshot on the side where Simon BS on Mastodon, he had the iPad compatible version of his app, and then he kind of converted it over to visionOS, and that's kind of, you can see the differences there. So I'm not going to go over all of these, but it's basically like you can kind of see that it's got that nice frosted glass look, and that's kind of, they had specifically designed the materials to kind of dynamically change with the environment. So you can see like the top screenshot is like a light room, and the bottom screenshot is a dark room. It'll kind of change with the lighting in your real world to make your content and your text the most readable it can be. So even like the text colors will shift as well. And that all comes with, if you're using the system colors and the font colors and things. If you're not, then that means you just have to do a little bit more work in probably your design team needs to figure out like what looks good on the frosted background, and should we be looking at using the special like colors, the foreground colors and things that Apple provides. Other cool things is even in running in compatibility mode, kind of skip. Even running in compatibility mode, you get access to the new kind of interface paradigm where it's kind of, they call it gaze and pinch. So this is where it tracks your eyes, and your eyes kind of act like a mouse cursor. So if you want to like close an app, you kind of just look at the close button and then just pinch your fingers. And you can be really lazy with the pinch as well. Like you don't have to hold your fingers up and do pinch. You can kind of like leave it lazily in your lap. And it's supposed to be like a really quick and intuitive way to kind of get around your apps. But if you convert the app and make it visionOS compatible, or build for visionOS specifically, you get a couple other cool things like for search bars. They have this thing where you can just look at the search bar and then speak your search term, and then it'll just run the search. So you don't have to actually look at it, click it, maybe type it on the awkward keyboard or speak it. It's a lot more fluid like that. There's also specific UI elements that are only available in visionOS. So things like ornaments. There's like floating toolbars and stuff. And also, of course, being able to integrate 3D models in volumes and spaces. So it's actually not too hard for an iOS team. Like I kind of tried to run it once, and it's just like you need to fix compatibility issues. You might have to do checks to make sure that certain features are available. Like for example, you cannot access the camera with the Vision Pro device. Just most kinds of like AV Foundation camera is just not accessible. So you kind of have to make sure you have checks around that to make sure, does my device support camera on an iPhone? But on a Vision it says not, the camera's not available. And one other thing was, so what can we do now? We don't have the visionOS, the Vision Pro device. It's not going to come out till early 2024 in the US, maybe even early 2025 for us in Australia. So how do we kind of get a feel of how it works? You can use existing devices. So we have the kind of mixed reality headsets like the Quest 2 and the Quest Pro. They have, there's actually prototyping apps available on those platforms. So some of them, some apps like there's Gravity Sketch, Shapes XR, and that allows you to import in assets like images and things. And you can even turn on pass-through, so you can see like what does it look like when I'm standing at my kitchen table and have floating windows. And then just, I think it was this week, Shapes XR has enabled gaze and pinch as an experimental feature when interacting with prototypes. So that's pretty cool. I actually have a headset here, so if anyone's interested in having a go with it, it's pretty neat. Although with the Quest 2, it's more like, it's not gaze and pinch since it doesn't have that capability. It's more like forehead laser and then try to point at things with that. But if you're lucky enough to have a Quest Pro, I did get a chance to try one at a meetup a few weeks ago, and it's not perfect, but it's still pretty compelling to have like it track your eyes and being able to select elements like that. Yeah, so has anyone had a chance to play with the simulator yet, the visionOS simulator? A few people. Okay. I'll give a quick demo of what that looks like. So this is just a sample app that I made, and it's, let's see if it's readable. Yes. Cool. So it's just, I'm using SwiftUI for it. And if you kind of look at the UI code for it, it's not anything specific to visionOS. It's just standard SwiftUI, making a list, using text and spacers. Let's see. Yep, and there's like a tab view. I'm using the standard tab views with labels and things. So yeah, this doesn't look really any different. So if I go ahead and run the app, and I'm selecting the Apple Vision Pro as the simulator, and so this one is just like a generic banking app that I made, but it's got the tab view kind of ornament here, and if I mouse over it, you can kind of see that it kind of expands and shows the tabs. So this is just, instead of having the tabs like the bottom of your iPhone screen, it's just the tabs will show up on the side now. None of this is really, like I haven't made this interactable. It's a really simple demo. You can kind of see how it works. I have the dynamic glass background. I can move the window around. You can even do that with compatible apps. You could resize the windows to be as big as you want. So now I'm going to have it fill up my entire screen. And yeah, and so the simulator kind of has like it's like basically being in a video game. I'm in a video game living room, and I can kind of navigate around it. So now I can go see what happens. What does it look like behind my app? And personally, I find these little movement controls at the bottom like really awkward to use. It's much easier to connect a Bluetooth gamepad controller, and then use the gamepad to kind of fly around the room, and then you can use your mouse or trackpad to kind of simulate your eyes and then click on things. So it's like I wanted to click on the buttons. Yeah, there we go. And the simulator has like some of the pre-built apps, and I've made the Hello World, if it chooses to click on it, and it's not. Let me reset my, there we go. Oh, it's not clicking. Beta 1 people. Yeah, and then you can change your environment around. So now I want it to be the living room in the daytime. There's even museum kind of environments that you can kind of try out your app in. It's still not working on the home screen.
Can you change the controller in the bottom right?
That's a good one. Yeah, thanks, Pat. Yep, so this is the sample app Hello World. Just being able to view the 3D content, and you can kind of see what it's like to walk around the globe. And then if you wanted to see the immersive space, this feels a bit like, oh, it just screen flickered, but it's supposed to have gone into VR mode on the headset. So yeah. Anybody, do we have time for questions?
Yeah.
Cool.
Does anybody have any questions? Amy?
Hey Gerald, a lot of the demo content seems to be SwiftUI. Have you played around with UIKit at all in visionOS?
No, I haven't. I've heard that it's mostly okay, but there's certain UI elements that are SwiftUI only. I don't know any off the top of my head, but that's just what I've heard on hearsay.
How about creating the scenes? Is there anything about how that would work? So I'm imagining you don't create them with SwiftUI.
You do, actually.
You do?
Yes. So to get like the spaces, you mean, right?
Like an immersive experience, like create your own museum.
Yeah. So they introduced a new SwiftUI control called RealityView, and then you build your bits within RealityView. So you can have the 3D objects. Think going into an immersive space is actually the only way that you're able to do like the cool ARKit stuff. So being able to hit test the environment. So for people who don't know, hit testing is like firing like an imaginary bullet and then it landing on, say, like a couch or the wall or the floor or wherever you happen to be pointing at. So that's only available with the immersive space. And yeah, it used to be harder to do that. And so that's one caveat between visionOS and iOS, is that ARKit and RealityKit are completely different from each other. ARKit and RealityKit in visionOS, it's kind of simplified because they're all dependent on RealityView, and then you kind of build your SwiftUI or UIKit interface within that.